Hello friend, welcome back. In this video, let's see how to generate a one-time password and send it through email and validate the email when it is entered, and based on the validation we'll give access in the Android app. We'll show you how to generate the code, how the code works. This code is written in Python. We'll also show you how to convert the Python to an Android APK. So entire work is written in pure Python. You don't need to use any other languages. We use Python because the code which is working in desktop can also work in mobile environment. So you don't need to modify the code. You don't even need to modify the GUI also. Since the same code can be used in mobile as well as desktop without any modification, we prefer Python. We used Ubuntu, Python 3, Kivy, SQLite 3, Kivymd, Python for Android for this. If you need help in email OTP authentication, please contact us now. This is the folder structure. This contains one folder called assets, and these are the files. This main.py contains all the code for this, and this attendance.kv, which will contain the layout which is written in Kivy language. This is the DB SQLite DB file, which is a text-based database, which is easier to use. This contains the code for sending the mail. We use different fonts and images also. The link for the source code is given in the description. The link for the APK build is also given in the description. Let's see how the email OTP authentication works. For the email authentication, you need a user email ID. We'll create a layout where you'll get the email ID of the user, and once the user enters the email ID and click this get OTP button, we will get email of the user. The email will be checked whether it is valid. If it is not valid, the user will be prompted and he'll be asked to enter a valid email. If it is valid, we'll generate the OTP by using a random generator function. We will store it in the database. The email will also be sent to the user. He will enter the OTP. Once this email is OTP is generated, this button will be changed to a different screen where he has a input field to enter the OTP also. Once the OTP is entered, we'll compare with the entry with the database entry, and if it is not correct, we will inform the user that the OTP is incorrect. He will enter the new OTP. He will also get an option to send the OTP again if he doesn't get the OTP in the first time. So if the OTP matches with the database entry, the user details like email ID will be stored in the database and the user will be given access. This is how the OTP process works. We'll go to the folder where the files exist, enter the command. This is the layout. This is the GUI of the app. The user will have an option as we said earlier. This is the button to send the OTP. The layout of this is governed by the Kivy file. We'll open the Kivy file also. This is the Kivy file that is responsible for the layout. This app has mainly two screens. One is main screen and one is logged in screen. After the user enters, initially the user will be shown the main screen. When the OTP is checked correct, he'll be given access to the login screen. This layout has one email field and one button. This is the KV code for this layout. Now this main screen is named as pre-login because this will be used to shift between screens, and this background color of green is given by this RGBA values. This is All these icons and images, text, everything is placed in the MD float layout. This MD float layout will give us freedom to move us the element anywhere inside the layout. First, we have a bit image. This image shows the background image. The size is governed by this, and the position is governed by these two entries. Next one is the text field to enter a email. This is identified by this ID, OTP email. This will be used later in the Python code to get the email ID from this text field. The leading icon and the text help text inside the text field are governed by this leading edge icon and the hint text. Another text field is present, which is to enter the OTP received, or this is where the user will enter the OTP. Right now this is not seen in the screen because it is present, however it is away. The size hint is given, and the position hint is center Y is given as -2 -0.25, which means OTP text field is present here. So later when the OTP is generated, this will be moved to this place. We found that this is easier to move the element rather than generating the element through the program dynamically. So here you can move text field once the OTP is generated. This also has leading edge icon and hint text. Another empty layout for showing the error messages. Right now the text is empty and it is identified by the ID v2. There is another button for OTP button, which is identified by the ID OTP button. This is the get OTP button. This is positioned at zero point 0.5 and center Y is set at 0.25. When this is pressed, this will go to the Python code, Python function get OTP and generate that. The button text get OTP is entered in this. There is another button because once the OTP is entered, you need to validate. That button is identified with the ID of validate button, as similar to the text field which we saw earlier. This is also present, but this is kept off the screen, which means the button is somewhere here. Later, it will be moved to this position. That text is validate. The user will also get a chance to send the OTP again by the button ID recent OTP button. This is also present. This will be off the screen initially. When that button is pressed, it will call the function reset to email. The user will be given, he will be shown a message here that he'll get a chance to send the OTP again. This empty label is used for that. Right now, the text is kept empty and it's positioned at this location. These are the text entries. These are governed by these MD labels. This is the next screen, which is the logged in screen. Once the user enters the correct OTP, he will go to this screen named with the name logged in. We'll see about this screen little later. Kivy language also has an option to validate the entry. Here, this will be validating the entry as email. When the user enters the email, till they enter the right email, this will be the text will be shown as red. Once they enters the right email, this will become black. So when the right email ID is entered, the email ID is show the help text is becoming black. So this will validate the email. Now let's go to the main.py file. These are the import functions. This will import the SQLite 3 and the function to send the email. Here we have two main screens which we have seen earlier. Those are the MD screen entries. This is the main class attendance app. which is governed by the MD app. This function will build the layout. So the primary palette is defined by this entry, and the IDs are collected and stored in the self.IDs, because later each each element will be identified by the ID which are stored in these IDs. We will generate the database. This will try to connect the database techwin.db. If the database doesn't exist, it will create this function. This will execute this function. If it doesn't get any entry, then which means the database is created new. So it will execute the second second command. We'll go to the function. This is the function. Now first it will try to generate, or it will first try to execute the first query, because if the database is new, there will be no table exist, so this command will fail. So when that fails, it will execute the second command. Similarly, if the settings table doesn't exist, the settings table will also be created. And inside the settings table, where the current email, if it is not generated or stored, it will create an entry in the table with the key as cur email. Later, this will be used to store this particular user ID. Similarly, the current OTP will also be stored in the database. Initially, when the user authenticates themselves by entering the email and the OTP, they'll be given access. But once the user authenticates themselves, and when they close the app and open it again, the next time they don't need to authenticate themselves, unless otherwise they log out, because they'll be using the app again and again. So if the authentication, if the if they log in, they have to be logged in again without asking them for the OTP. This function will take care of that, because it will check whether the current email is stored in the database. If the current email is stored, then instead of going to this screen, it'll change the screen to the screen named logged in, so that it'll be convenient for the user not to enter the OTP again and again. Now let's enter the uh, let's enter the email and click this OTP button. When this button is clicked, it will be sent to this function get OTP as defined in the Kivy file. So here the email will be obtained by the this email ID where we stored the IDs in the earlier command. In the program also, the email will be checked. This function will check whether the email is valid or not. So, if the email is valid, it will send the OTP. Here, once the email is entered, and the text here will be changed as sending OTP, and the text color is also changed to white. And while the OTP is being sent, we need to disable the OTP button. Otherwise, the user can click the OTP button again. So this command will disable the OTP button, and we will call this function send mail with a delay of 1 second. You need some service to send the emails. There have been several services to send emails, both free as well as paid options. Each service offer different ranges in their free plan, and the pricing is also different for different services. This pricing is for this day. This can vary in the future. We have considered only 10,000 emails per month. If the requirement increases, the price may vary, or the pricing for emails may also vary. So you please check out the current pricing in their respective websites. The link for all these services are given in the description. So we have considered the basic usage of 10,000 emails a month. So we have calculated the amount in paisa, that is Indian currency, per email spent. To give a perception, 80 paisa is equivalent to 1 cent in US. So among all these services, the Zeptomail offered by Zogo, that results in 1.5 paisa per email. So this chart shows different the pricing for one email for provided by different service providers. Based on this pricing comparison, we have chosen Zeptomail for as a sender for our email. Each service they provide a free emails which are given here, but however we advise you to go to their website, read their terms and conditions, because each terms the terms vary for each service providers. We have finalized the Ziptomail to send the email. Ziptomail offers this Python code for sending the email, where you need to get the username and password from their website by going through this through the link in the description. So this will be used. This will be put in a function, and this will be called from the main.py file. So this send mail function will be called when the OTP button is clicked. So when the OTP button is clicked, the text OTP text is changing to sending OTP, and it'll send the email. The result based on the result, because sometimes due to network failures, the email cannot be sent. So based on the result, what we get, whether the email is sent or not, we will progress further. And when the OTP button is clicked, it will be disabled till the email is sent. When the email cannot be sent, it has to be updated saying that error in sending OTP. So try later. When the sending email is successful, we'll update the database by changing the current OTP to the OTP which is generated. This function will generate the OTP by having a random combination from these many digits, and we have defined the length of the OTP is 4. You can also modify this, and you have to customize this function, this module to suit your needs. So this has to send the OTP back. Once the OTP is sent, then the email will be updated. Once the OTP is successfully sent, where the position of the OTP button will be changed, and the validate button will be brought to the screen, because now the OTP button is sent off the screen, and validate button is brought inside. And similarly, the OTP received text field is also brought inside once the OTP is successfully sent. The user will also be given to send the OTP again in 60 seconds. That will be done by calling up a particular function with the schedule interval. This will update the timer text. So at the end of 60 seconds, that send OTP button will appear again. So that this update timer function will take care of that. You will see this in action. So I have entered a invalid email ID. So I'll click get OTP button. It will say enter valid email. So I'll enter a valid email. It will say sending OTP. And here, as you mentioned, now the get OTP button is sent outside, and the validate button is brought inside. And this timer text is also updating. Or after 60 seconds, you'll get one more button to resend the OTP. Now we have received the OTP which we mentioned in the email which we mentioned. Here we have received the OTP as 3392. We will use this OTP to log in the app. As we mentioned, after 60 seconds is over, we'll get one more recent OTP is done. So just with intention, I'll enter a wrong OTP first. It'll say wrong OTP because it'll check the OTP. I'll enter the correct OTP now. 3392. I'll say validate. Now it is logged in. Now the OTP entered is correct, and the user is given an access. This is the empty screen now. Later, you can customize this screen by modifying the Kivy file and the backend Python code. This has one button, a button here for logout, and a text message saying that logged in. This is governed by the Kivy file. If you go to the bottom, here we have logged in screen. It has a name as the screen name is logged in, and it is also governed by MD float layout. The label logged in is responsible for this text. This MD icon button is responsible for this logout button. This icon is a logout, and it is when it is pressed, it will call the logout function. When it is pressed, it will set the current email as empty, so that next time when the user tries to log in, it will ask for email OTP authentication again. I'll close this app and run it again. Here, the app does not ask for OTP again because the user is already authenticated, and his email ID is entered in the database, so it will not ask for his email ID. But if I press the logout, they will come out. So if I close the app again and open it, this time it will ask validate the OTP again. This is how you can find out whether the user is already logged in or not. And based on the status, you can give access to the main screen or logged in screen. This is how the email OTP authentication works in Android as well as desktop. Now let's try to build the Android APK from this Python code. Here Python for Android is used, and this is the command p4a. It'll try to generate the APK, and this is the folder where the code is present, and we have given a name and a package name and app name also. Now we need to mention where the SDK is present, and NDK Python Android NDK is present, and you have to define the requirements as Python 3 and the Kivy material you color exception group and SQLite 3. We are building this app for three different architecture. We have given internet permission because it has to contact the servers to send the email. We are given the pre-splash logo also. And the background color is given as green here, so that this you can see when you open the app. Let's build it. One more thing to note is the latest Kivymd and the version 2.0, which is in the development version, does not have a recipe to build. So instead of adding the requirements, we have added the Kivymd folder in the code folder itself. If you come across another solution, please let us know. So the app will pack this Kivymd folder inside the app. Let's run it. After a few minutes, the app is built, and it is available in the current folder. This is the app built. Let's install this in the Android phone. We will go to the folder where the app is present. We'll open the APK. App is installed. Let's open the app. This is the pre-splash color which we mentioned earlier. Now we will enter the email. Now the email is entered. We'll get the OTP. enabled the internet. Now the OTP is sent. Let's check the OTP. The OTP has come as 9502. We'll enter it here. Now it's valid. Now the user is given as logged in. Now I will close this app. I will open the app again. This time the user is given the login access directly without asking for the OTP. This is how you handle the OTP process in Android mobile using Python. Thank you for watching this video. If you find this video useful, please comment below. Thank you. See you soon.